Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1993 animated film, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I want to give a special shout out to Jonathan for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you'd like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both will be in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, The Nightmare Before Christmas is a film that I definitely did grow up watching. I remember watching it a ton of times on VHS, and anytime that it was on TV, I would remember watching it. In fact, I distinctly remember watching a airing on the Disney Channel. And it's a movie that I genuinely loved when I was younger, but as I got older and the film became more and more popular, became more and more trendy, I started to sour on the film a little. I started to become less enamored with it, and I started to have thoughts like it's good, but it's not that good, pop into my head more often. And as a result, I just didn't really seek it out as much anymore. I don't even know if I even had the film on DVD. If I did, it wasn't until years later. Uh, and I don't even know if I watched the Blu-ray. I think I might have watched the Blu-ray once, but I'm not 100% sure. I think I did because I was thinking about doing a review of Nightmare Before Christmas like a couple years ago, but then I never really got around to doing it. And I'm glad that I waited so long because then I was able to get my hands on this 4K. And this really shows the film in a completely new and just spectacular light. And after watching this movie again in 4K on my OLED TV, I fell in love with it all over again. I thought this was a mesmerizing, magnificent film. It's a beautiful work of art in a multitude of different ways. It's directed by Henry Selick, and I think Henry Selick's direction in this is quite special. I think he did a stupendous, spectacular job directing this movie and making it his own, despite the fact that it's very much Tim Burton's baby, because it's based on a poem that he wrote of the same name. The aesthetic and the design of the characters and the world is very heavily influenced by Tim Burton's own signature style of animation or stop motion and his particular take on gothic themes. But despite everything, and despite just the fact that it's it's a movie where you're essentially working in Tim Burton's shadow, I feel that Henry still put his own stamp on things. And I don't think the film would necessarily be the same if Tim Burton did direct it. Because I think Henry Selick has a certain way of directing uh sequences and just creating a sense of mirth as well as mood. Like he just finds a really good balance between horror, uh, darkness, and light humor and uh, moments that could be considered maybe too schmaltzy under a different director or under a different lens. And also, he is an immensely talented artist. So that really also is something that winds up in his favor. He knows how stop motion is supposed to work. He knows what makes stop motion unique. He knows how to get the most out of that format of animation. And I think he was also wanting to showcase stop motion in a way that had never been seen before. Because stop motion, you had like the Christmas stop motion movies, like the Rankin Bass films, and you had like Gumby, and you had other fantasy or adventure movies that featured some stop motion here and there. But stop motion was widely known as something that was either you make a project on the cheap, you use stop motion, or it was known as a form of animation that was it was a bit stodgy, a bit stiff. And what Selick does here with his crew with this film is show that stop motion can do so much more. That stop motion can be something that creates a form of animation that is very different and unique in the way that it utilizes the settings and the mindset and the imagination of those behind it. It's something that really does show the life of the animator behind every scene, because it's hands on and there's this craftsmanship to it, this handmade, uh, honorable, just really noteworthy part of it that you don't necessarily get with other forms of animation. And I think through an ambitious project like this, it just really opened up a lot of people's eyes when it comes to stop motion animation. And it, in a lot of ways, wound up becoming an inspiration for other directors and other films that would go on to utilize this form in the future. So I think Selick's work in this wound up having a genuine lasting impact and legacy that stands on its own. And just from a technical standpoint, it's just a tremendous looking film, from the way that Selick worked with the lighting of the sets, the way that he had a lot of different varieties of camera techniques and angles that he employed to showcase these landscapes, to showcase the setting of Halloween Town or Christmas Town, and just create a film that just takes you on a ride that is unquestionably unique and uh, really an example of a whole new world visually. And the direction isn't stiff. It isn't something where things are a little bit choppy. Everything just flows brilliantly. And he manages to even get a lot of emotion out of certain scenes just by the way that he's shooting them and the way that he sets up the different shots. And it's incredible. It really is. It's an unbelievably impressive work by Henry Selick and everyone else involved. And it's just one of those things where it really is special. It really is. And a big reason for that is because of what Henry Selick brings to the film. It's written by Caroline Thompson, and it says it's also an adaptation by Michael McDowell. But Caroline Thompson, she did some writing for the film's story, but a lot of the film, and in particular the dialogue, was not even written by Caroline Thompson. It was written by Henry Selick, I think there might have been a few things that Burton might have done. I'm not 100% sure. But I think a lot of it's by Selick and other people involved with the production who wrote a lot of dialogue and wrote scenes while they were shooting the film, and they were working on the stop motion puppetry and so on and so forth, and building the sets and utilizing the sound stages. And this script is a prime example of a simple but very effective tale. It's not really something that features a lot of depth for honestly any of the characters. There's not really any character development for the most part. But what it does is it focuses more on a simple but effective way of turning things on their head. Where you start out with the Halloween um montage. So you have This Is Halloween, and it's this really catchy song, and it's just a really wonderful way to showcase the morbid but genuinely fun uh setting of Halloween Town and the people that live within it, and showcasing Jack Skellington and the mayor and all of these other various people who are part of the town, as well as establishing Sally as a character who was in essence just created by her creator. And that's something that definitely does grab you when it comes to the story, because it's just a fun way to open things up. But what makes this script really strong is when it shifts its focus to Christmas, when it decides to take Christmas tropes and Christmas cliches and a lot of things that are connected to the Christmas holiday and fuse them with Halloween. And it's a very interesting and compelling mishmash of these different genres, and it's really entertaining. And there's also a certain endearing quality to it as well. You see why Jack is willing to try to take Santa Claus's place and why he wants to give Christmas a try, because the script does a good job showcasing his disillusionment with Halloween, and he's tired and he's bored of it all, and he's looking for excitement, and he's looking for meaning and reason in his life again, that isn't just being the pumpkin king of Halloween uh town, and being the guy who sets up all the plans for Halloween every year. He wants something more, and you get a good sense of that even before he finds Christmas Town, so you understand what's going on in his head leading up to that moment, which then makes that scene all the more effective, because you establish a clear and concise mindset for the character. You understand his motivation. And so when he goes to Christmas Town and he sees all the lights and he sees the snow and he sees the Christmas trees and the elves and presents, and he just sees all these things that he's never seen before, you can understand why immediately that's something that appeals to him. That's something that he wants to do himself. And he doesn't realize the danger of that. He doesn't realize the magnitude of him employing people in Halloween Town to go kidnap Santa Claus so then he can take his place, so the folks of Halloween Town can do Christmas this year he doesn't understand or realize the consequences of that. And I like that there's a real defined conflict when it comes to Jack Skellington and what's going on with this character. And I think that's definitely one of the strongest elements of the script, other than playing around with Christmas and fusing it with Halloween in fun and inventive ways. But you also have some really strong writing when it comes to Sally and her character. There's not, like I said, there's not a ton of depth with her character, but you understand her. You get why she is the way that she is. You understand why she's willing to continue to poison her master, and why she's willing to go as far as she ultimately does to escape and to go out on her own. And I think the love story angle between her and Jack, it's sweet, it's charming. It's not something that's really that complex, but it doesn't have to be. I think it works fine just the way that it is, with this love at first sight kind of angle. And speaking of angles, I really like the stuff involving Oogie Boogie. Like Oogie Boogie, I think is a fun villain. The fact that he likes to gamble, the fact that he's just this spooky collection of bugs and burlap is a really inspired creation, and he definitely feels like a genuine antagonist. The script does a good job showcasing him as a threat, and then when he winds up essentially kidnapping Santa Claus, which is kind of funny because that's the whole plan. Jack Skellington employed members of Oogie Boogie's gang to go kidnap Santa Claus, and I guess he just didn't think that they were going to take him back to Oogie Boogie. Uh, but that's exactly what happened. And it's up to Jack at the end of the film to stop Oogie Boogie and save Santa Claus, because prior to that, the moment arrived for Jack, and he took over as Santa Claus, and he took the presents that the people from Halloween Town created, and he went to the houses and he delivered the presents, and it was a disaster, just like Sally predicted. She had this premonition of a Christmas tree on fire, and that's exactly what happened. And I love the dark humor in this entire sequence involving the just messed up Halloween presents, because that's really what they are. They're not necessarily your typical Christmas presents. They're Halloween presents, and just the creativity involved with those, um, just dastardly, devilish gifts. And I also really enjoyed the dark humor when it comes to the commentary about this imposter Santa Claus and how quick the military is to mobilize to shoot him down. And it leads to some really fun, twisted moments, and I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of dark comedy, and that whole sequence is definitely a highlight of the film, as well as the script. And I like that throughout all of this, through this experience of trying a new thing and trying to um do the Halloween version of Christmas, Jack regains his love and his desire and his passion for Halloween and for the town and for being the Pumpkin King. And that culminates with him defeating Oogie Boogie and saving Santa Claus. And so he not only saves himself, he saves the town and he saves Christmas. Because if it wasn't for him stopping Oogie Boogie, then there would be no Christmas. Because Santa Claus would be grinded up into a pulp. So I like that. I like that he has a very defined arc as a character, and I like that he winds up with Sally at the end. It's a really sweet and heartwarming moment, and it's not what I would say a story that really sits on a lot of things and moves from one bit to the next fairly quickly. So I think there isn't really a whole lot of time to resonate or to really sit with certain aspects of it or certain emotions. But for the kind of story and the kind of film that it is, that's more than fine. Although I really love the world and I love the creativity and I like Jack and Sally. And so it's one of those things where I kind of almost wanted a little bit more from this script. Not necessarily more musical numbers, there's plenty of those. But maybe a little bit more with Jack and Sally, or maybe a little bit more in terms of like the final uh duel with Oogie Boogie. But for the most part, I think it's a really great screenplay. And whoever it is that is behind it, they really did a remarkable job with the film's script. Now, when it comes to the cast, it's not your typical cast because a lot of it is voice acting as well as musical acting, but it's still a really great, talented group of performers. Chris Sarandon as the speaking voice of Jack Skellington, he is just spectacular. He is really quite something else in this role. It really showcased his range as an actor. He's not just the vampire from Fright Night. He's not just the cop from Child's Play. He can also portray Jack Skellington and have a lot of emotion and spirit and energy in his voice and he's able to project and stretch his voice in ways that you didn't really see before. And I've always loved him as an actor. I always felt he was an incredibly talented performer. And his voiceover work in this is some of his finest work. It really is. He brings Jack to life in a way that is just very natural and is also really entertaining to watch. And he matched perfectly with Elfman's singing voice because Chris Sarandon was able to mimic or at the very least come close to matching Elfman's own uh energy that he brought to Jack. And the result is just a really special combination of talents coming together. So you have Chris Sarandon as the speaking voice of Jack Skellington, and then you have Elfman who's doing the singing, and that's also some of Elfman's best work. He's excellent. He is just unbelievably good when it comes to the singing voice of Jack Skellington. Um, and Catherine O'Hara, she's also terrific. She's also equally on par, in my opinion, with Chris Sarandon and even with Elfman because she sings. She does her own vocals. It shows another side of Catherine O'Hara that you didn't necessarily see as much of. And I was definitely aware that she could sing because I remember her doing some singing in SCTV and some other work that she's done in the past. But it was really nice to see her showcase her talents in a film like this. And because of the fact that it really is a movie that hinges upon the talent of the voice cast. Like the animation, the visuals, and the direction is one thing. And that can be strong enough on its own, but it can't carry the film. And you have to have really strong, capable performers to bring these stop motion creations to life and to really make them breathe. And Catherine O'Hara uh, really brings Sally to life in a multitude of different ways, provides the character a lot of personality and charm, and it's just a great performance by her. William Hickey's he's fun as Dr. Finkelstein, the evil scientist. It's great casting. I mean, he has a voice that's just perfect for mad scientist. Glenn Shadix, he was a lot of fun as the mayor of Halloween Town. It was fun to hear him again. He worked with Burton in Beetlejuice as I think it was Otho. I think that's what the name of the character was. Um, it was a nice role for him because he was able to stretch his acting muscles a little bit because this was a character that was two-faced, literally. So it's a character that would go from calm and collected mayor to panicked and just absolutely manic at times or at the drop of a hat, and he effectively handled both sides of that character very well. Ken Page, he voiced Oogie Boogie, loved this voiceover performance. It oozes villainy, but he's having the time of his life playing this character. There's just so much charisma that when it comes to every scene that Oogie Boogie is in, and I feel that Ken Page does not get enough credit for what he brings to Oogie Boogie. He really doesn't, because when it comes to this film, a lot of people, understandably, they gravitate towards and they praise mainly Chris Sarandon or Danny Elfman or Catherine O'Hara, but they don't necessarily give as much attention to Ken Page or to Glenn Shadix. I also think Ed Ivory as Santa Claus, that was a really inspired, incredible performance in its own right. Not a character that has a lot of screen time, but Ed Ivory, he adds something a little different. He has his own little twist to Santa that I really liked and I enjoyed. Paul Rubens, he voices one of the trick or treaters who works for Oogie Boogie, and he was a lot of fun in that little role. In fact, Elfman also voiced Beryl. He voiced the clown with the tearaway face. Catherine O'Hara also voiced Shock, one of the trick or treaters. So a lot of people involved with this voice cast, they did a lot of double duty, or they just really honed in and just delivered very natural, very uh, genuinely creative and cool performances. Like I just think that's a big reason why this film still connects with so many people, old and new, when it comes to the audience, is because of the fact that it does have this unique charm to it, and it's something that everybody involved with the cast helps bring to it. Now, the film does feature some other technical elements that I want to mention real quick, like the cinematography by Pete Kozachick. Uh, this is just a wondrous film in so many different ways, and the cinematography is just top notch. This is a great looking film. The way that he worked with Selick and just showcased the stop motion animation as well as the sets that they built and they lovingly crafted is a sight to behold. It really is. And the editing by Stan Webb is also wonderful. It's something that really just adds an extra level of greatness to the movie because the film has a lot of different scenes where there's a lot of different things happening. It's panning to different characters singing or panning to other things that are happening in the scene. And the editing just maintains the same pacing as everything else in the film when it comes to the visuals and the film is edited in a way where it just makes it look like it wasn't difficult at all. Makes it look effortless. And that's not an easy thing to do. So I want to give Stan Webb a lot of credit for his editing in the movie. And of course Danny Elfman for his music. In a lot of ways his music, his original score, his compositions, his creations for the lyrical presence in the film, the songs, is in a lot of ways the heart and the soul of this movie. And I think that this film endures after all this time, not just because of its aesthetic, not because of Burton's style, although that does help, or even what Henry Selick brings to the film when it comes to his direction. In a lot of ways, it's Danny Elfman. It's his score. It's his original music, and it just creates something that is just so genuinely magical. It really is. It's dark. It's a little twisted, but it has every bit of the same magic as any of those other classic Disney animated films from this era. And it's so strong and special when it comes to the music that I genuinely got chills when it comes to the finale at the end of the movie. So I can't sing enough praises when it comes to Danny Elfman and what he did for this film. His compositions, the fact that he was able to effectively blend together Christmas and Halloween. Uh, that's something you would think would just be like oil and water, but the way that he does it is just so effective and so fun. I think that's a good way to sum it up because it really is. It genuinely is a lot of fun to see and to hear and to just experience. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the Nightmare Before Christmas except I I loved it. I think this is a really great film. I definitely agree with its status as a classic of the animation genre. I would say it's easily in my top 5 when it comes to Disney animated films. Even though it technically wasn't a Disney animated movie when it came out, it was released under the Touchstone label because Disney thought it was a little too edgy to release under their main banner. But I like that over the years they changed their mind and they've lovingly embraced the movie and the fan base. And I think that's great. Um and yeah, once again, I if you are a fan of this film and you have a 4K TV and a 4K player and you're kind of on the fence about this release, don't be. Go and grab this as soon as you can cuz this transfer is terrific. The film has never looked better. It sounds great too. And here's a little Christmas gift for you. Here's a digital code. Um, to whoever copied that and redeemed it. Merry Christmas. And thanks for watching my review of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.